Howdy, all. We want to start something. Well, we always like to talk about something non-hockey related. I don't really want to talk about the New Hampshire primary yesterday because I don't want to cast aspersions against most of the population of Greater New Hampshire about their stupidity of electing a moron like Donald Trump.
Upside down Vermont, they call it. You just flip it.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Yeah, Vermont invented Ben and Jerry's. New Hampshire invented nothing. But
Wow.
Dan, you're talking about you're going on a cruise.
Yes, yes. I fly to San Juan on Friday night, and then on Sunday we leave for 7 days through the Southern Caribbean. That's going to be very nice.
Russ,
Saturday I'll be at the Bacardi factory, so all bets are off.
Russ, I've never been on a cruise. I have lots of friends who have been, and when they tell me the experience, you're on the boat, you're stopping at different islands, and you go walk around the island, but you have to be back at the boat by a certain time. Otherwise, you get left behind, which I would be paranoid about that, so I probably wouldn't even leave the boat. But you're stopping at
have plenty
island.
of time.
What's that?
You have like 10 hours or 12 hours in an island.
I know, but I'm just saying. But you sort of walk around, and then you're on the boat, and there's nothing really other than to eat, drink, and gamble.
Do you guys not know me at all?
Here's the thing. All right, there are anti-vaxxers in the world. I'm not one of them, but I'm an anti-cruiser. And because here's the thing. For one thing, Dan, step on the scale today or tomorrow, and then step on the scale when you get back. I guarantee you will gain at least 5 pounds, if not more. That's one thing.
I'm going to go to the gym every day.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You will gain 5 to 10 pounds. It won't matter. The other thing is, I hope nobody gets like some sort of foodborne illness or some sort of illness on the boat because that could spread. That's another fear of mine. I've seen it happen. People always say, oh, well, it doesn't happen on my cruise, but it happens on a lot of them. And all I'm saying is, if you're going to have a fight with your significant other or any guys, just don't stand near the edge because even though they sort of take roll call, people disappear on cruises.
We have a balcony, too, so I could go for a little swing.
These are part of the issues I have. And then what Mike said is true, that like I remember when I went to Jamaica and we didn't go on many tours, but we went on one, and all these tours make sure that you walk by the tourist traps, and it's annoying.
Now, okay, and I will not say the name of my friend because I want to keep his and his wife's, them out of it completely. And this was 10 years ago. There was some sort of sale on some sort of Caribbean cruise, 3 islands, those Curacao and a couple others. And they go, and I don't remember the exact number that they paid for the ticket, but say it was $800 a piece. Okay. They spent, and they're not lushes, they spent $900 on the alcohol bill.
Wow.
Yeah, I won't be that bad.
But it's the thing. See, the thing is that the price. See, that was the reason why the ticket was so cheap was because they boosted the price of the alcohol, or they figured, what the hell, we only paid $800. Let's go hog wild and order 15 bottles of rum.
And you're out there already. Like, what else are you gonna do?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, 1 bottle of rum should be enough, though.
Well, you would think. That'd be enough for. Hey, I've got a bottle of rum in my pantry that's been there for 7 years. So
yeah, I'm not a huge rum guy either, but once the weather gets over about 85 to 90, I become Jack Sparrow. I am scared of one thing, though. There's one thing I am scared of. What I don't like about cruises. I am terrified of rogue waves. I am terrified of rogue waves. They don't understand that stuff. They don't understand that. Those things happen.
Go ahead, Russ.
No, just saying, you're talking about on the boat or when your body's surfing?
On the boat. Like, you get hit like
with could take you. I mean, you could get taken.
I know, I'm a little concerned about rogue waves, but the rum will ease the fear. So
I suggest I suggest that you do not watch the movie Poseidon.
I've seen Poseidon. I also saw Ghost Ship too.
Oh, jeez. Okay, enough of this. All right, let's talk some hockey. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Wednesday, February 10th, 2016.
Ahoy, matey. I'm Dan Petru.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Agello, and this is the HockeyBuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Guys, let's start with the games from last night, some interesting happenings. Russ, first the L.A. Kings going to the TD Garden in Boston and open up a can of whoop ass on the Bruins, 9-2. First of all, I loved the throwback jerseys. I love the
they look great.
Gold Kings jerseys.
I love them too.
But I mean, it was really like sort of contenders versus pretenders last night.
Yeah, it was. I mean, look, here's the thing. We know that even if Boston makes the playoffs, they've got lots of flaws. Mm-hmm. And everything worked against them yesterday, and everything worked for LA. After a while, it was like a pickup game. Like, I was watching a little bit of it, and I saw a lot of highlights, and they just imposed their will on them. It didn't even matter. Was it the Lucic return? Was it, probably a little of that, but it also just exploited the Boston defense, which still isn't good, and it shows that, look, the regular season means something in the NHL. It does, but it does show you that even with like a sort of a flawed defense, if you get enough offense, you can get through it. Playoffs, good luck.
Right. No, Rush, you're exactly right. The Kings just match up perfectly, and they exploited every weakness of the Bruins. And honestly, I could see the Panthers doing this to the Bruins if the Bruins make the playoffs. Because the Panthers play that heavy game. They're big. They can skate. They got the goalie and defense. I think if the Bruins can get in and maybe play Detroit, I think they can because they can skate with Detroit.
Yes.
And so that could be a series that could be won by the goalie. But boy, if I'm a Bruins fan right now, if I'm Bruins management, like you were shown your weaknesses last night, right before the trade deadline. You were shown your weaknesses, and now Christian Ehrhoff on waivers. Maybe I don't know if the Bruins would claim him, but
defense, though. They need guys who could actually play defense.
Yeah, where are those guys? That's the problem.
Well, I mean, and Ehrhoff is 33 years old now. He did get waived at noon, and he was the leading minus on a team that was mostly plus with the Kings. But the thing is, Russ, $1.5 million in salary, and he's played internationally with Seidenberg for a number of years. So I wouldn't put it past Don Sweeney to maybe put in a claim, because $1.5 million is about what they have in terms of cap room to bring in a defenseman. It might be a cheaper option than going out and trading something to get a defenseman.
Well, it is a cheaper option, but you get very little in return. You do. I mean, Ehrhoff, everybody seems to still be working off of Ehrhoff's reputation. It sort of started with the Sabres signing. I didn't get that, and he has not done much since then. This is a different guy the last 2-3 years.
Well, he had an okay year in Pittsburgh. Go ahead, Dan.
He did. Is he better than Brian Streit and Marek Zidlicki?
Probably.
Maybe.
I'm just thinking from that perspective, because
from that perspective, most of the league are. But
exactly. That's why I asked it, because it seems like there could be a fit on the bottom pairing there.
Yeah.
But I mean, to me, if you look at this, and this is clearly Lombardi opening up at least $950,000 in cap space, because he either sends them down. Well, it used to be Manchester. I don't know what it's.
Ontario
Reign. That's right, the Ontario Reign. But sending them to Ontario, or hoping that somebody claims them, and then he opens up $1.5 million in cap space. But to me, this is positioning themselves to maybe be able to get a rental defenseman at the deadline.
Whatever. I mean, if I were a GM, I'd stay away.
Well, no. I'm talking about the Kings opening up the space.
The Kings just opening up the space. I'm sorry. Yes, they did a smart thing by doing that. That they definitely have to. Again, that bottom pairing is not a bottom pairing for the playoffs. Jamie McBain, I loved him in his draft year, and I'm glad he's been able to sort of hang around and play in the NHL and show that he belongs to some degree. You don't want him playing a lot of minutes in the playoffs, and he wouldn't play a lot. And, again, you don't want Luke Shen on your second pairing for very long either.
Right. I think if Shen was on your bottom pairing, you'd feel a little bit about that. I think you'd actually be really happy if he was like your 5 or 6.
Yes.
Yeah, and I mean, from the reports I heard yesterday, and it adds up to what we've discussed many a time on the webcast, the Kings were targeting Byfuglien. Apparently Lombardi had contacted Cheveldayoff a number of times to see what was going on with Byfuglien, and obviously the Jets re-signed him, and that sort of slammed the door on him. Now I don't think that the Kings would have been in on Phaneuf because the contract wouldn't have worked, but instead of they may, and I keep going back to this, Russ, they may move on to a guy like Yandel. The money makes sense. I mean, 2.65 or 2.625, that's not tough for them to fit. And maybe, Ehrhoff being waived is part of that.
What would that deal look like, Russ, from a Rangers perspective? What do you think they could get back for Yandel if it was the Kings?
They would have to get Kempe. I mean, that's like, to me, if I don't get Kempe, I don't even, like, I basically just stop talking.
Right, because the Kings don't have a first round, right? Do they have
no, they don't have a first rounder, so
right.
I might not even want to pick. I might take Kempe and might take Derek Forbert back, a guy who definitely could play in the NHL, but is sort of blocked a little in LA. And is he a bottom pairing guy? Yes. But do I know that Dylan McIlrath is going to play forever in the bottom pair? No. So I at least improve my depth. The funny thing is like there are some Ranger fans that say we can't survive without Keith Yandel. And look at his shooting percentage. It's awful. He's got literally, I think he has 4 goals, and his shooting percentage is bad. Now, was he being used on the right on the power play? No, I get it. But he doesn't get a lot of shots through. When he takes them on the power play, not a lot of them go through, and not a lot of them open up chances for his teammates. So the points he has are great, but the game the other day showed the flaws of Keith Yandel. The Devils basically are getting shut out 2-0. He throws a blind pass, they get a goal, it's 2-1, and all of a sudden they're back in it, and it's in the third period. You can't play like that, fast and loose at any time in the NHL anymore. And there's too many times when Yandel will play fast and loose like that. And again, going in the playoffs, trying to go deep in the playoffs, you don't want a guy like that. The offensive part is great. Don't get me wrong, but it's not so great. It's not Erik Karlsson great. It's not. So, do I think they could possibly put Dan Boyle in his spot for the rest of the year and get away with it? Yes, I do. Do I think Dan Boyle is the perfect solution? No. But I think they could get away with it and possibly improve themselves for the future and do whatever they're going to do in the playoffs, right? Because Keith Yandel didn't win him a cup last year. He's not winning him a cup this year. They've got to look ahead, and if they don't look ahead, they're going to have a problem.
Yeah, they have to get assets for him. They can't. I mean, they're going to make the playoffs with him or without him. They have to get a young asset or 2 assets. Maybe.
Bring up Brady Shea, see what you got. I would, and he still might not be ready, but who knows? I mean, that's the other part of this is Vigneault has to be willing to play some young guys. Now, I'm not saying they have to play Kempe. They could leave him in the AHL the rest of the year, and that's fine. But if they don't, if they think at the end of the year he looks good and he's really physical, that's fine. I mean, I just looked yesterday. I think Nick Jensen's got 4 or 5 or 6 goals already in the AHL. At some point, maybe bring him up. But the problem is Vigneault blocks a lot of that, and is very rigid with the guys that he plays, and that's another problem.
Now, Dan, one of Russ's favorite players is Evander Kane, and last night in Buffalo, Evander Kane notched a hat trick. The problem is it wasn't in the net; it was with his mitts. He fights Alex Petrovic 3 times.
That was weird.
Which I can't remember the last time I saw 2 guys fight 3 times in a row in the same game. But the Panthers win again over the Sabres 7-4. Panthers seem to be rolling. I mean, but right now they're without Barkov because he got hit in the previous game. I'm not sure the extent of how long he's going to be out. I think he just got his bell rung. It's not anything serious. But I mean, how far can this team go? And do you think that they need to add something at the deadline, or do you think they're just going to stick with what they have right now?
I definitely think they could use it. Look, everyone in this league could use another defenseman if you're making a playoff run. I actually think Eric Stahl could be a good fit there too if Carolina was gonna move him. Obviously, we don't know what they're gonna do yet, but I'm gonna make a bold prediction right now. Bold prediction from what I've seen, especially what I've seen between the best of the Eastern Conference, quote unquote. If the lights aren't too bright for the young guys in the Panthers, because they're not going to be too bright for Jágr and Luongo and those players, Campbell, etc. They have a good core of veteran leadership there. If the lights aren't too bright, this team can win the Eastern Conference as currently constructed.
I don't rule that out because
I don't rule it out either.
They match up well with Washington. They really do.
Until Washington everybody is lauding Washington this year, and deservedly so, because Holtby's having a great year, Ovechkin is playing great, and they have the second line center in Kuznetsov, and they added Oshie, and they added Justin Williams from LA. But until they prove that they can win in the playoffs, which they haven't done in their history, and especially in their recent history in the Alex Ovechkin era, I can't say no doubt they're going to win the Eastern Conference and go to the Stanley Cup Final. They always seem to find a way to lose, and it's most of the time it's been against the Rangers. They seem to have their number, but there's a possibility there that there's still something missing. They have to prove it to people. And
Oshie has to prove that he can perform in the playoffs too. He has not had a good career in the playoffs.
That's true. That's very true, and it's something that, because of the Olympics, we all sort of gloss over and don't want to.
It's almost like the regular season doesn't matter for the Capitals right now because of their past failures. It doesn't matter at all. It's Stanley Cup Finals or bust.
It's irrelevant. I do want to give him Mike Richards watch. In 9 games, he has 0 points. And what you should do, the camera should go away, and it should come back to me, and I should have 2 pencils up my nose, like John Belushi when they said your grade point average is 0.0.
0.0.
But that's what I feel like is going on now, except he was out there late in the game against, I think, the Flyers it was, on the penalty kill, and didn't look horrible. But again, is this a reason to have him taking up a roster spot? I'm not sure.
It's interesting because if you look at Richards in the 4th line role, the limited minutes, you haven't seen much so far. And then you look at LeCavalier in a 4th line role with no pressure at all, and you're seeing a player who's excelling.
Well, but LeCavalier still had the hands. We all said that.
Yes, absolutely.
Everybody in Philly, even the people that didn't like him anymore, all still said, hey, on the power play and in certain situations, he still had the hands. I don't know if Richards even has the hands anymore.
He doesn't have the feet.
No.
Well, and this is the thing that the Caps GM McClellan, I think he did it on purpose. He signed Richards at least a month out from the deadline to see can he do it, can he not do it? Because if he waives him, I think they signed him for $1 million. I mean, it's only a $50,000 cap hit if they send him to the minors, or if he.
There's no risk here.
Right, there's no risk at all. But they have enough time. He has enough time to go out on the trade market and get himself a rental forward, because I think ideally what they want Richards for is to basically be a 3rd, 4th line checker, somebody who can take face-offs, somebody who can penalty kill, and there will be plenty of those guys. I happen to know that there's a couple guys from the Leafs that the
Matthias would work, wouldn't he?
Maybe a P.A. Parenteau, maybe a Nick Spaulding, who.
Yeah, to me, it's like this. I get that they like what he brings defensively. Is it enough, though, when you're in the playoffs, he's taking up a roster spot, how many PKs are you going to have a game? But when he's out on the ice, if I'm the opposing coach, knowing that he's slow of foot, I'm putting some of my faster players on the ice.
Sure, you can exploit that when the Cap's on the road in the playoffs.
Yes.
Now, hopefully, Holtby can make up for those mistakes.
Yep.
Well, yeah, he'll cover things up, but see, I mean, the thing is, last year, I mean, Holtby was not the reason that they lost to the Rangers. Holtby was the reason they got to Game 7.
Right.
But you can't depend that much on your goaltender to carry you forth. You have to have players, and that was the whole reason behind getting a Justin Williams, who has made a habit of scoring key goals in the playoffs, and Oshie is an effective, second line winger who can score on the power play.
The Rangers' 4th line, which is a lot bigger and faster than the Flyers' 4th line, when you match up against the Capitals, probably could exploit Richards.
I think the Islanders' 4th line could exploit him too.
Yeah.
Okay. Last night, the Anaheim Ducks defeated the Flyers 4-1. Anaheim, Russ. I mean, it seems now that they've put that really bad first half behind them. I mean, they're now 59 points. They're 1 point behind San Jose for 2nd place in the Pacific. They're 5 points ahead of Arizona and Vancouver. I don't think either of those teams have what it takes to catch them. Now it's a question of whether Anaheim, what can Anaheim do to improve their playoff prospects. I mean, right now they would play San Jose in the first round. I don't think they're going to catch the Kings, but I think that Bob Murray has to make a couple moves before the deadline. And when we were talking yesterday,
killed him last time, right? I mean,
right.
Devils are thankful that Murray made some moves. I mean, here's the thing. I watched the game. I was there. without Sean Couturier, the Flyers lacked any kind of size to size up against Anaheim. So it was men among boys, the start of that game to the end of that game. And that's why you kept seeing fight, fight, fight. You kept seeing frustration on the Flyers' part. All that said, Anaheim still can't light up the scoreboard against a team that they're 100% better than.
Right.
And
no,
so
but the goals are coming. They're starting to come.
they're coming, but
This is a team that was averaging 1.5 goals for like 25, 30 games. At least they're getting 2.5 now. And with the defense and goaltending, that's okay.
no.
Good.
Margin for error, though, is going to be tough.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
In the West.
Sure.
And that would be my worry for them. Like, we did pick them. A lot of them, people thought they could make it to the Cup. I thought that they could make it to the Cup. But I still don't look at this team and say they're that back that they can make it to the Cup. Now, moves may do it.
Yeah.
But, again, they're another team that is starting to strip mine some of their talent. Now, they are deep with defensemen.
Right.
They really are. Even above the NHL level.
Right.
Shea Theodore is one of the better guys not playing, too.
And that's where I'm going here because Theodore's on his entry level deal, so they're obviously not gonna move him.
No.
But you've got Vatanen, you've got Lindholm on their RFA, you've got Cam Fowler locked up, I think around $4 million for another couple years.
Yeah.
So it's a question of where Murray wants to go. If he doesn't think he can sign both of those defensemen, those RFA defensemen to long-term deals, or could get them on bridge deals, then he may move one of them before the deadline, like we were talking about. A guy like Shattenkirk or other young defensemen who are coming up for their contracts. Like Jacob Trouba. Teams might not be willing to pay the type of money that it takes to get these guys signed. So we may see some preemptive moves by a guy like Murray with one of those defensemen before the deadline.
Here's the thing I noticed, too, last night. Like, I'm happy for Ricard Raquel because I always thought he could score goals in the NHL, and he's doing that. But we don't know if he's going to do that in the playoffs, right? Because all of a sudden it becomes different for younger players. So
he did have a playoff hat trick last year.
Yeah, he did. And we'll see. We'll see if he could reproduce that. That's a good point. I will tell you this, Ryan Kessler, even in the slot, is missing the net.
Yeah, he is.
Like, this guy is not the same shot-wise. All of a sudden, he's got 11 goals. Part of it is because he's not hitting the net.
Mm-hmm. In Columbus, the New York Islanders beat the Columbus Blue Jackets in a shootout 3-2. I believe Columbus led most of this game, and then the Islanders came back and tied it up. Right, Dan?
Yeah, the Islanders I think tied it with about 14 minutes to go in the game, and I think after the first period, the shots were like 35-12 Islanders.
Yeah, I saw the overtime, and the overtime was pretty entertaining. There were a lot of chances. And in the shootout, Korpisalo got exposed, but
he played a strong game though. He had 44 saves. He was outstanding.
Russ, again, I say, first of all, I think that obviously with Bobrovsky injuring his groin 3 times in 1 year, I would highly doubt we're going to see Bobrovsky back the rest of this season.
No, they're shutting him down.
Yeah, they're going to shut him down. That doesn't mean that they're tanking for Matthews, but I think it's just it's preservation. Maybe they opt for surgery to see if they can fix the problem, and he comes back fresh next year. But compared to some of the other teams at the bottom of the league, talking about the Austin Matthews sweepstakes, I know that Columbus is bad, but I don't think they're as bad as some of the other teams. And
well, defensively they are, and Korpisalo, as a young goalie, he's not going to stop 45 shots and win a lot of games.
Right.
And so that's why he lost yesterday's game, I'm sure. I didn't see it, but Dan can talk to it.
That game could have easily been 8 or 9-2 Islanders. They had some really good chances. Although I thought the Blue Jackets played a very strong first period, but then once the Islanders finally got that second goal, it was a back and forth game, but the majority of the chances came from the Islanders, and I thought Korpisalo was great. And if you're a Blue Jackets fan, you're encouraged that you have a good young goalie in your system.
Yeah.
Right, but still a good young goalie with a lousy defense, and they still might trade somebody else off of that defense.
Yeah.
Well, if you can get a sucker to take Jack Johnson, you do it.
That's what I'm basically saying. So when you add all that in, then it's like, okay, wait a minute. They can be that bad. So, Mike, I get what you're saying. but he's a young enough goalie that I still think he's going to have some troubles.
Yeah, and I mean, I would understand them trying to trade Jack Johnson because based on what he's being paid and based on where he was a couple years ago and where he is now, I think you'd be better off to get rid of him. But the guy that they supposedly are trying to move is Tootin. And they're willing to probably eat salary on Tootin because Tootin is not an offensive defenseman. He's more.
No, he never has been, but he's solid.
Right, he's definitely solid, and maybe that's the type of defenseman that can, a competitive team like a Dallas who's looking to shore up their blue line. If they get a little bit of a discount with Columbus retaining some salary, maybe that's a guy that they will go for. As for the Islanders, I mean,
there's something that you said with that I think people should think about too. A trade that could help Columbus could be a Keith Yandel if they feel like they could sign him. Because would the Rangers take Tootin back and one of Columbus's good prospects? Absolutely.
Dan, the Islanders, I mean, what is missing?
How long do you have?
Yeah, I was gonna say we need to cover the last half hour of the show. So let's go.
So there you go.
They need a defenseman and they need a top six forward. That's what they need. I mean, they need consistency too. I think that's the biggest thing. There are times they look amazing, and there are times where they treat the puck like it's a live grenade, and sometimes it happens throughout the same game. Like they started well last night, and then for about 15 minutes they forgot how to play hockey, and then they got it back, and they eventually won the game. It's a very up and down team, and when you get a B-level performance out of them, they're talented enough to beat most of the teams in the league. It's just I don't know. It's hard to explain. There's definitely just something missing right now. I think it starts with they need someone else that can move the puck on the blue line, and they need someone who can finish and play on the top line.
Well, okay.
How about this?
Go ahead.
How about with Ryan Strome underperforming, which he still is doing, even if
he's showing signs of life, though, Russ. He is.
Would you trade him? Would you say that to Arizona? Hey, couple of years, next year you could, maybe 2 years you have the Strome brothers together. I'll trade you Strome for Boddicker straight up.
No.
See, I think I would do that.
If I knew I could sign Boddicker, I would.
Right.
Well, you might be able to, but it would also. I think it would help you for this year. For this run,
I would trade Oposo to the Ducks for one of their RFA defensemen.
That's fair.
And then if you do that, you could move Hamonic for a forward, and you wouldn't have to move Hamonic for a defenseman per se.
Well, the question is, okay, first of all, do we know whether they're definitely going to move Oposo or not? I mean, with Garth,
I would think Garth would have to get bowled over for a trade offer for them to move Oposo.
Right.
Which I personally think is a mistake because I don't think with Oposo or without Oposo, this team is a cup contender. I think they're a middle-of-the-pack team that's probably going to lose in the first round of the playoffs.
I know there's been some,
and they're not going to re-sign them. You might as well trade them.
I know there's been some connection between Anaheim and Boston regarding Louis Eriksson and one of their defensemen. And the thing is, I mean, if it's a question between Oposo and Eriksson, I'd rather have Oposo.
Oh, sure you would.
But the thing is, I mean, I don't know whether Anaheim is going to move any of those RFAs for a rental player that they really have no interest or no hope of signing.
Right.
So I think they're probably going to want it in any of those deals to get maybe a rental that'll help them now, but also somebody that they can hold on to and have for future. Because if you give up a Fowler, if you give up a Lindholm or a Vatanen, and that's a guy who's probably a top two pairing defenseman for the next 6 or 7 years.
I would consider trading Strome for one of those defensemen as well.
And that might be something. That might be
something. I just think
I don't want to trade Strome, but I think if I can make my team better, I would.
I think they may have to because if they're locked into keeping Okposo, which they might be at this point.
They're not going to resign. I don't think he's resigned.
No, he's not resigning, but they'll trade his rights at the draft for like a third rounder.
I think that's a huge mistake, but
that's what'll happen.
I know.
And so Strome, if they could get a return for him that helps the team now, I think they have to look at it.
Right. I wouldn't give him away, but I think if you made me a good offer for him, I would listen.
Yeah.
Last night, the Montreal Canadiens win their third game in a row. So it's either hot or cold with this team. They're either the worst team in the league or one of the best. But they win their third game in a row over Tampa Bay 4-2. I'm assuming Ben Scrivens was in goal because why would Terrian go away from the goal he's won?
No, Scrivens is their guy now for the next whatever until he loses.
Yes, he's
and that makes sense. But Russ, and not to say this guy is an impact player, but they lose Brian Flynn for 6 to 8 weeks with an injury. To me now, I'm looking at the standings right now, and I believe they have
player, and he's a good. If I remember correctly, watching his games, he's really good on the PK too.
Yeah, I believe they have 58 points. And the wonderful app that certain people. 58 points. They're 3 points behind Pittsburgh, 4 points behind Boston. They're still in it. I mean, if they continue.
No, they're in it.
Yeah. But now it's up to Bergevin because now if you're losing depth players, you really have to go out now. And I would say now it may not even be dependent on Carey Price. I mean, Carey Price skated again today. He's skating without equipment. It's they say he's getting stronger. I mean, this could all be spin. And this is the thing. Yeah. Go ahead.
I saw the video, the more recent video, like a day ago, where he slammed his stick against the glass in frustration.
Right.
I think they're trying to get people to lose that memory like us.
I also think that, when other NHL general managers get a whiff of desperation, like, okay, they need to make a trade because Carey Price is out. I'm gonna ramp up the price. Well, now they've won 3 in a row, and Carey Price is skating, so maybe it's getting close. Okay, maybe we'll make a more fair deal, or I won't be as ridiculous. That might be what's going on here. As soon as they make their trades, they announce that he's been shut down for the year, and Ben Scrivens and Condon are the other 2 goalies. And it could be that, or they could be trading for a goaltender if they don't think
they would trade for a goalie. There's no way they're going into the playoffs with Ben Scrivens. There's just no way.
Well, James Reimer is available.
I don't think they would do it with James Reimer either. I think asking the Canadians to trade with the Leafs is a definite desperation move, and I think just the blowback in the press, they will stay away from that.
What about Hiller?
Hiller's a possibility, but Hiller I don't think can play anymore.
I agree. I'm just trying to think of someone who's in Milwaukee or that could help.
And that's why I mentioned Reimer, Russ, because honestly, it's a no lose for Montreal because he's not going to. If they traded for Reimer's not going to sign Montreal because Carey Price is there.
Right.
But Toronto proved with the Phaneuf deal they don't care who they're trading with as long as they get the best return or as long as they get
what Montreal cares.
I think too if Toronto wants to trade Reimer to some place he might be able to re-sign because you might get a better return.
Right. If he goes to Nashville, he's not going to sign with Nashville because.
But if he goes to Calgary.
But if he goes to Calgary, he's probably going to stay there, or they can make a case. We're going to make you the number 1 goaltender because Ramo and Hiller are gone. But that's Nashville and Montreal are the same situations. Basically, Price will be back next year. We have Condon, we have Zach Fucale in our organization. We're not going to pay you $4 million, because you led the NHL in save percentage for 5 minutes. But
here's what I would do. All right. Now that Leonard's playing well in Buffalo, if I'm Montreal, maybe I look at Ullmark, and maybe Buffalo would deal Ullmark.
Buffalo will deal Chad Johnson. They're not dealing Ullmark.
Yeah, you think? Okay.
Yeah, they're not.
Well, you know what? Chad Johnson this year might be better than Ben Scrivens in the playoffs. I know.
I read that book.
I know. We all did, but he is having a pretty good year. We got to admit that.
Well, does Cam Ward make any sense?
I was thinking Cam Ward too.
Cam Ward makes sense if they could fit it. Yeah.
Cam Ward makes sense if Ron Francis eats half the salary.
Yes. Then I would say Cam Ward would be the leading guy. Yes.
And I think that would give Montreal a legitimate chance because Cam Ward, I don't think he's as great as he was, but he's still.
No, he's not. He's not great. I wouldn't even use great anymore. No.
Well, no. I'm saying he's an above average goalie now.
He's serviceable.
Yeah.
He's average.
Okay, on Marty Brodeur. On Marty Brodeur night last night in Newark, the Devils beat the Edmonton Oilers 2-1.
On National Pizza Day, Brodeur got a statue.
Yeah, and an exciting.
There's a lot to be written there.
In an exciting affair at the Rock, Russ. I mean, just I kept checking back to this game, and it was just dreadful. But
Did
yeah,
Connor McDavid get the goal?
what? I'm sorry.
Did Connor McDavid get the goal?
No, he had
believe
an
did.
assist.
Because
Oh, yeah,
here's something I want to bring up.
Okay.
A small thing. I'm hearing echo, so I'm going to lower a little. I'm a little frustrated with the Canadian media acting as if, like I see posts the other day, oh, McDavid's got 19 points in 18 games, and I'm thinking, you're still like 18 points behind Larkin and Panarin. Wake me up when you're in that ballpark, and then I'll consider these posts to be anything but nationalistic in nature, because I try and look at all prospects evenly, and I do. And the thing is, just because
Because you're from America.
Huh?
Because you're from America, so you look
I
at them
know.
all evenly.
I know. Just because Connor McDavid is back, it doesn't mean he's automatically jumping into the Calder race, because he hasn't even gotten to Eichel level yet.
I don't think it's that, Russ. I think it's the
It is
fact
that. No, it's absolutely.
no. Well, I mean, down the line, if he continues at a point per game pace, I think you're right. It's about that. But right now, it's about driving ratings. Edmonton has been dreadful.
No, tweets don't drive ratings. These are tweets that I'm reading.
Well,
I think if he goes 30 points in the next 20 games, then you can bring him into the discussion.
Right.
Yeah, and maybe he'll creep into it then, but I don't think he's going to win it. And that's the dream, right?
Right.
Like,
I think right now it's Panarin, Larkin, and Eichel.
Yeah, I mean, I think those three, and like I said, I think Gibson's maybe a fourth.
Oh, yeah. I keep forgetting about Gibson because he's been around for so long.
Right. But you're right.
Domi.
Yeah, and Domi's in there too. Those are the guys, and like I said, I get that this is the Canadian dream, but don't force it on Twitter until he's back for 10 games and he's got 20 points in 10 games. And by the way, even with him back, Edmonton's still losing games too.
Oh, I saw it firsthand the other day.
Well, and last night, and we mentioned it at the end of the show yesterday, and it hasn't happened yet, but it was talked about widely during the game and after the game that Justin Schultz was a healthy scratch, and there is some speculation regarding a possible deal. I heard one, and I can't attest for the source. I'm only bringing it up for conversational purposes. But I heard something about Justin Schultz for Jonathan Drouin, which makes absolutely no sense.
There's no way they're making that deal.
No, why would Edmonton trade for another forward for a defenseman, even though he can't play defense?
It seems like something Edmonton would do, though.
Well,
it's not.
Unless they can flip Drouin or flip Yakupov or somebody to another team for a defenseman. If it was
I don't think the team is at this point getting Drouin to flip him either.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Well, yeah, no, that's why I said Yakupov. That's why because Yakupov only has 14 points, but
he does play well with McDavid, so they have to give that a chance. They do.
Yeah, but since McDavid's back, they haven't been playing him with
No, it's been Eberle and Pouliot.
Yeah. And they mixed in Zach Cassian for a game, which was bizarre. Winnipeg wins a shootout 2-1 against the St. Louis Blues. Mark Scheifele with the shootout winner. The thing about this game that I think about is the Blues and their inability to score. I mean, to me,
they're a horrible scoring team. They are.
Yeah, and Russ, it's shocking because there's a lot of talent there. There's a lot of talented offensive players. Now, this could be just this is Hitchcock, and that's the type of system he plays.
Yeah, I think it's more than that, though. They got some old bad contracts like Backus and Stastny, and they're just taking up roster spots, and they really miss Schwartz. I was
going to say, Schwartz seems to be the engine, right?
Yeah, it's Tarasenko or nothing right now.
Right.
Well, the question is now, it's like, because Backus, everybody assumed, I mean, it's been assumed that Backus was going to be back with the Blues, that they would re-sign him. Is it possible they're trading him at the deadline? Is it possible that they'll just walk away? I mean, I think
again, he'll get traded. His rights would get traded, but I don't think they're trading him at the deadline, no.
Is he a third-line center now?
Yes.
Yeah. I hate saying that, too, because I love the guy.
He's a third-line center because they have to play Paul Stastny as one of the top two to justify the contract they signed him to.
Yeah, listen, I told you I hated that contract from the minute.
I did too, yeah.
But Stastny still plays good defensively. He's still a pretty good face-off guy, and he will score some points.
But it's $6 million.
No, I know. But the problem is, when they're not doing anything, it's all on Tarasenko, and it does seem like Jaden Schwartz was their other guy that they could count on for that other offense. And
they were faster with him too. The team looked better. They looked more cohesive with him.
Yeah, and now that they don't have him, they're suffering. And I don't know what's his prognosis. I don't even know.
Yeah, is he even skating yet?
Yeah, I haven't heard a thing about it. So if that's the case, then he's probably not skating yet. And if that, I mean, if they can get him back before the playoffs, I mean, I think they're going to make the playoffs. But
no, they'll make it.
They should.
Now, Nashville loses to Washington last night. Nashville at 58 points, 2 points ahead of Minnesota, 4 points ahead of Vancouver and Arizona. Thing I have to be concerned with here, Russ, and I know, if I said this when Eck was on the show, I'd probably get scolded. But Pekka Rinne, I'm just checking. His save percentage is a little over 900. He's not playing like Pekka Rinne normally plays.
Yeah, he looks a little frustrated from the little bit I've seen of him recently, and I don't blame him for being frustrated. I think they're teetering a bit. They're the kind of team now that, because of their limited offense and all the pressure that they put on their goalie and their defense to stay in these close games. I mean, go look at the Rangers when they were under Tortorella. The pressure that put on Lundqvist, it's a lot. And there was a year Lundqvist didn't make the playoffs and lost in the shootout, right? This could be that kind of year for Nashville, no matter what they do, because they don't have any offense. They still have no offense.
Yeah, 4 goals on 22 shots. That's
bad.
That's not good. No, that's what they've been doing. They get pucks on net, but they can't score.
No.
Now, I just mentioned the Canucks. They won over the Avalanche 3-1, but that's not really the news. They're on the outskirts of the race. But just Bob McKenzie just tweeted out, Brandon Sutter fractured jaw. He had, I think, just come back. Alex Edler is out with an injury. No timetable available. To me, that means they're selling off what they can sell off. But from what I understand, Dan Hamhuis is unlikely to waive his no-trade clause to be moved. He's from the Vancouver area. His family is there. He doesn't want to leave. So if that's the case, they're a team that's out of the playoffs and doesn't have a lot to move. Maybe Brad Verbata, and that's about it.
Yeah, they're going to have a problem with that. But they're playing their youngsters a lot, and I saw that Barshy and Virtanen had good games, right? I mean,
Horvat's been playing well too.
And Horvat's been playing well. Again, maybe they just barely stay in it. They'll sell off something, and that's the kind of team they're going to be. I still think it's crazy that unless Montreal continues with this surge, that there still might not be a Canadian team in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I have to say I didn't see the disputed goal last night, but I did see Joel Quenneville's reaction after the game. I
saw that.
Now I know what Mount Vesuvius looked like when it exploded. Oh my goodness! But I heard I heard John Shannon this morning on Sirius XM radio, and his reaction to this particular incident was that he thinks that replay is going to go, like, all the decisions are going to go away from the little tablets with the referees, and they're going to be decided completely by Toronto. The offsides and everything else that'll be implemented next year. If they do that, Dan, what do you think? Do you think that's good or bad?
I don't like taking it out of the control of the referees on the ice, but I do think they need some better technology. Like giving them, hey guys, let's look at that, let's look at, it's crazy. Give them the technology, like it works elsewhere. Like in the ECAC, what they do is, one of my friends is in charge of the replay. What they do is, let's say Quinnipiac's playing Harvard, disputed goal. The referees go right to the penalty box, and they have an EVS there. An EVS, for a technical term, is electronic video service. It's basically TiVo on crack. It has every angle coming into one source, and it's a nice big screen, and you have a little instrument, and the referee can say, let me look at camera 4, let me look at camera 3, let me look at camera 2, let me look at all of them at the same time. You can put a mosaic up there. And so the referees who made the call on the ice look at the video, and it never leaves their decision. I've always liked that. I don't like
to, and I've seen it in action in a bunch of.
And it works quickly too. That's the biggest thing. It works quickly.
And
Yeah.
they do that in the NBA. In the NBA, they have a big monitor on the officials' table.
Yeah, they had like a 108
Yeah.
foot monitor there that someone carries out.
So why did they get a sale on iPad Minis? Or I mean, honestly, you should have either a bigger tablet or a monitor set up there that they can look at basically all the angles. And if that's the case, then I think then they should keep it the way it is. But if they refuse to do that, then maybe they have to go the way of just having everything made in Toronto. Because I've seen the setup in Toronto, and they've got multiple screens, and they have
they have those setups. I would rather have that setup individually right in the penalty box.
Right.
I just don't like taking it out of the hands of the officials and having a third party that's hundreds of miles away.
And we see how the coaches sort of react now that it has been taken out of the hands of the officials. The coaches have this sort of dismissiveness about them towards the officials because they're like, doesn't even matter what you say. Cause
it doesn't matter if you get the call right or wrong because I'm going to be mad at somebody else who's thousands of miles away. And if you leave it in the referee's hands, I think coaches would have a little more understanding.
They would. There's more frustration. The frustration level has built up with this process.
Right, because there's no one you can yell at.
Right. You always want someone to yell at. It's true.
Right or wrong. At least if you have someone to yell at, it's okay.
Well, okay. I saved the most interesting game from last night for last. Not because of the score, not because of the result, but because of everything that happened before it and in it. And that's the Calgary Flames and the Maple Leafs. Calgary wins the game 4-3. They led 4-1. But first on the Calgary side, Hartley, their head coach, scratches Johnny Gaudreau, Sean Monahan, and Lance Boma before the game. Apparently, it was due to something that happened in practice on Monday following a Super Bowl party. And there's not a lot of details about it, but it was a disciplinary situation, and they decided to scratch arguably their two best forwards, and still they scored 4 goals on the Leafs. I mean, Russ, young players, they're both coming up for their big money on their contracts. I mean, this is something, and it doesn't sound like it was like some sort of massive insurrection or something like that. It was just a disciplinary thing. But is this a sort of a warning sign to Calgary that they, would be a little fearful of giving these guys big money?
I don't think so. I mean, at the end of the day, they're still young guys. Did they go out late? Did they maybe miss a practice? Maybe.
I think this is just, this shows that Johnny Gaudreau does not belong in Calgary, and he needs to be somewhere, with there's more, I would personally walk to Calgary and carry him like Luke Skywalker carried Yoda on his back, because I'm 6'3", and Johnny's, 5'7"? I could carry him from Calgary to Brooklyn and put him right next to John Tavares.
Yeah,
let's make that happen.
There's no parties in Brooklyn, right?
No, there's no parties in Brooklyn.
There's no Super Bowl parties in Brooklyn, none at all.
No.
On the Toronto side, the reaction to the Dion Phaneuf deal, obviously Phaneuf was not in the lineup. They played with a skeleton lineup, mostly made up of AHLers because guys like Tyler Bozak and Joffrey Lupul are injured and not even with the team. Nazem Kadri got belted twice on nice checks by Mark Giordano, and I wish I could show the video, but he's in trouble with the league because Nazem Kadri did a throat slash gesture.
Right. And then he said, "I'm going to flip and kill you."
Yeah, and honestly, and Russ and I talked about this morning, and I've always, I've always believed that Kadri has a lot of talent, but I think that the things that he does off the ice and his, things in his personality don't do him any favors. And one of the things last year was when he got suspended for 3 or 4 games by Brendan Shanahan, was that he needed to check his attitude. Now, they've been talking him up this year about how much better he's been as a player, how much improved he is. I don't think he's as improved as Babcock and Lamoriello have been leading on, which a lot of people think they did the same thing for Phaneuf and they ended up trading him. But to me, Russ, this is a sign that he really hasn't grown up.
No, it's definitely a sign he hasn't grown up. I'm not that worried. I don't think they should do anything as far as giving him a fine or a suspension. Because here's my thing.
At worst, it's a fine.
Maybe a fine, but all these GIF makers, they're just looking and waiting, GIF makers, for stuff like this. The penalty box used to have a lot worse things going on. This is like heat of the moment, trash talking stuff. It's not like this guy's doing it in a meaningful way where all of a sudden you have to get like Homeland Security involved.
Yeah, he was mad. He was mad at the hits, and he just overreacted. But here's the frustrating part of it.
The only thing I was going to add to that, Dan, is he hasn't changed as far as being mature, and that's why the Leafs will let him go.
I just think if you're what annoys fans about quote unquote player safety and supplementary discipline is that this is getting looked at by the league, but Wayne Simmons' forearm to McDonough that leaves him concussed, and then he throws his stick at an official does not get looked at by the league, and I think that's what drives fans nuts.
Sure, but let's be fair. I mean, the McDonough hit was a little dirty. It was high with the stick.
It was very dirty. It was a forearm.
Yeah, but all that said, when you hit a guy and drop him on the ice and he is concussed, you should get a game suspension. You should.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm not going to kill that he doesn't, but I agree. It's those things.
But the fact that it was never even looked at by the league, I think, is infuriating. If they looked at it and said, "Okay, look, the match penalty's enough, and here's why," I think a lot of people would feel better about that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And the key to the whole Kadri situation in Toronto is the fact that he's an RFA at the end of the year. He's 2 years away from unrestricted free agency. So it's not like a situation where, okay, we can extend him for a year and just see what's going to happen. It's been 5 years in Toronto, going on 6 next year, to determine what type of player he is. And do you want – now, you know, I'm not in the locker room. I can't determine what type of guy he is or whatever. That's up to Shanahan and Lamoriello. But when you have a whole new wave of young players coming in with Nylander, with Marner, with the kids from the Marlies, if you have a player that you have questions about their character, you got to get rid of those players.
Yes.
And that's where I'm saying if they don't think his character is right and they think he could be a destructive influence in their locker room, and they're moving forward with the rebuild, which they're clearly doing with the Phaneuf deal, then your older players, the guys like Leo Komarov and Bozak and a few other players, those are going to be your leaders with a team that's mostly made of 20 and 21-year-olds. If you have a guy who's 25 years old going on 26 who is maybe a destructive influence, I think you got to trade that guy.
Yeah, and I think he'll get dealt at some point. I have bad news for Dan. Dan, it would take you 33 days to walk to Calgary, and
That's fine.
It's not fine. The deadline will be passed. So.
Oh, all right. Well, you know, I'll. What if I rode a unicycle?
Well, if you biked it, it would take 9 days.
Okay.
But it's the winter. The winter would slow him down.
Yeah,
the winter might slow you down, so I think you could be there in.
What about Uber?
2.5 weeks.
If he took Uber, how long would it take?
My cruise ship could pick him up on the way back.
Okay. I just wanted, for accuracy's sake, I wanted to just bring that into the conversation.
Yeah. Whatever he needs. Like I said, I will carry him like Yoda on my back.
Yoda was a lot lighter.
Yes. No, not that much. Like I've stood next to Johnny Gaudreau. He is what, maybe 150 pounds?
Yeah, like 155.
Yeah.
Oh boy, we're getting off track here. Well, 3 games tonight on the NHL schedule. Vancouver, Arizona. The rivalry between the New York Rangers and Pittsburgh Penguins will be on NBC SN.
Is there a rivalry? I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. Hey, it's better than like what they have Tampa and Detroit last week.
I know, but let's say it's barely a rivalry.
Well, most of those games are barely a rivalry.
Yeah.
Well, they had Boston Detroit as a rivalry game, and there is no rivalry
because they're original 6.
Yeah, whatever. But I mean, right now Pittsburgh is in the playoffs. I believe they're 1 or 2 points ahead in the race for the wild card. New Jersey is on their tail, but they have a few games in hand, so that will help them. But
they need to make a trade, though. New Jersey, they do.
I think New Jersey needs to make a trade, and I think that Pittsburgh will make another trade. So these are two teams.
That's a guarantee. Like, the Sun coming up tomorrow and a lot of other things.
And the Rangers trading first-round draft picks.
Rangers trading first-round draft picks. These are all things that are guaranteed in life.
And tonight, the debut of Dion Phaneuf in an Ottawa Senators jersey as they take on the Detroit Red Wings. How weird will that look, Russ?
I don't know. I mean, at this point, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, okay, for somebody who's seen Phaneuf play in Toronto in blue and white for 6 years, it's gonna be weird. I mean, he's wearing number 2 in Ottawa instead of number 3. Who cares about that? But it's gonna be weird. It's gonna take a little getting used to.
I asked this of Dan. Was it any weirder than seeing Alexei Yashin as an Islander?
No. No, I was going to say, it's not like, Brodeur wearing a St. Louis Blues jersey weird.
Right. That was weird.
That was weird.
Yeah. Well, and everybody is penciling March the 5th on their calendars in Toronto.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure we are.
That is Ottawa Senators versus Toronto Maple Leafs on a Saturday night. And the strange thing is, and it'll be a little different, and I heard this question asked, and it's something that it'll be curious to see. When Phil Kessel came back to Toronto in October, there was no video tribute. There was nothing. There was no acknowledgement.
He didn't do anything for them.
Right, but still, previous administrations of the Leafs, they would have said or done something. Even during the TV timeout, just show a brief video and whatever. Dion Phaneuf was the team captain.
Yeah, you have to do something.
He wasn't a very popular team captain. I mean, in terms of the fans, but he was the team captain. I think the organization will at least do, during the TV timeout, just do like a thank you Dion thing.
They have to. Look, they signed him to that extension at the Winter Classic when I was there. They made a big deal out of it. They have to do something. If they don't, something's wrong. I'm sure they'll do something. I'm pretty positive.
Yeah. No.
Hey, I got something to add. I did just post.
Oh, please. Yeah. I'm sorry.
I did just post my numbers 11 through 15 for the 2016 draft. It's part of my top 30. These are not mock drafts. This is just my rankings. I'm sure people will have a problem with a lot of them, and that's fine. This is version 1. I probably usually get 2 or 3 or 4 versions depending on if I feel there's that much change. I don't do it so people will talk about it or give extra clicks. I'm just not that guy. So what I do is what I do.
And looking at it, Russ, I mean, in terms of like other lists that I've seen, I think, and I agree with McAvoy being up there because I think he's going to be a pretty good NHL defenseman of what I've seen of him.
In all situations, right? And I think at the end of the day, Sergachev is an offensive defenseman who has upside for sure, but McAvoy can do it all. He may not ever have the offense that Sergachev has, but he can do it all.
But the guy this will be one of the stories that we will follow at the draft because Russ and I and Ak will probably be at the draft, is where Alex DeBrincat goes. You have him ranked 12th, and I saw one list that had him ranked in the 20s.
Well, again, here's my quick answer to that. I hold no bias for height when I rank players.
Right.
Do others? Yes.
Yeah, and
even the World Juniors. Are others basing way too much on the World Juniors? Yes. But when he was healthy, because he can't help it if someone creams him with a hit, even a guy 6'2" on that hit would still get injured.
Exactly.
He still came back and scored a pretty nice goal, too. I saw that, too. But I think people are they're way too judgmental with this kid. And at the end of the day, I still looked, and he has like 68 points.
This will be the last thing I say. If a team that has size already, and I'll use Anaheim as an example, if they take him, if they're in position to take him, it makes sense because they add speed and they add skill and they have big guys to support him. But if it's a team like Toronto who probably will have a second first-round pick if Pittsburgh makes the playoffs, and the majority of their prospects are size challenged, Nylander, Marner, Timashov, they're all.
If they get a top 5 pick, though, they're probably going to have a big boy.
Right. If they have a top 3 or 4 pick, they're going to end up with one of the Finns or Matthews or Kachuk. But I'm saying, the majority of the guys in the pipeline right now, Dan, are 5'9" through 6 foot. Yeah. They might not be willing to take that chance because they have too many of the same type of player. So it's all going to depend if the fit is there. If there's a team that's got size, I think he could get taken in the teens.
Here's the funny thing. In high school, he averaged 2.22 points per game. In the OHL, he's averaging 1.58 points per game. In his career in the OHL, that's not just one season. I'm not saying he's going to be a 40-goal guy in the NHL because obviously he's not based on that size. And I'm not even saying he's going to be Johnny Gaudreau. But what I'm saying is I think he'll be able to score at the NHL level. And if he were 6 foot with these numbers, people would be going crazy.
Yes.
All right, guys, great show. We'll be back tomorrow with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. Eklund should be back. For Dan Petru, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.